In 2021, the SEC championship game between Alabama and Georgia featured a true matchup between an unstoppable force and an immovable object. Alabama's offense was led by Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young and was throwing for 348 yards per game. On the other side of the ball, Georgia's pass defense finished third in the country, surrendering just 171.5 yards per game. Not only were the Dogs stingy with the passing yards, but they were also nearly impossible to score against. Before the SEC championship, they'd given up just 5 passing touchdowns while snagging 12 interceptions. Clearly something had to give when these two units met, and in this game it was the Georgia defense, which suffered a near total failure as the Tide threw for 421 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. And if you didn't know about the previous 12 games, you'd think that the Bulldog coverage unit wasn't very well coached. Throughout the game, they gave up big plays and critical third down conversions, they left defenders in bad positions without a lot of help, and sometimes they even busted coverage completely. When a good unit fails like this, it's often because of some inherent structural weakness that the other team's been able to dial in on, and in this video we'll see how a particular weakness emerged in Georgia's Blitz game plan, and how Alabama was able to exploit that weakness mercilessly to earn the #1 seed in the playoff, along with a Heisman Trophy for their quarterback. To understand how Alabama's offense was able to dominate in this game, we have to start with a particular tendency by Georgia to blitz away from the run strength of Bama's formation. Now, the run strength will be defined differently against different formations, but the first and most obvious rule is that the run strength will be the side that has the most run blockers. So on this play, Alabama has 2 tight ends as additional run blockers to the left side of the formation, and they have no additional blockers to the right. This makes the left side the run strength. As I said, Georgia then showed a tendency to blitz away from that side. So on this play, we're going to see this linebacker blitzing away from those 2 tight ends. And in this case, that pressure is going to help him shut down the run. Of course, in spread formations, there won't be any extra blockers in the box, and so in those cases, Georgia's blitzing to the side of the running back's alignment. This makes sense if we're thinking in terms of the run strength. On this play, the running back's offset to the right, and on most plays, we'd expect him to work to the left to get the ball from the quarterback, and then to continue to the left for his run play. This means that in a formation like this, we can think of the left side as the run strength, and on this play, Georgia is again blitzing from the opposite side to that, bringing this linebacker right here off the edge. Now obviously, Georgia's defense is really sophisticated, and throughout this video we're going to see several different blitzes with different coverages and in different situations, so I don't mean to imply that the Bulldogs are making the same call in all of these cases. What we can say though is that purely descriptively throughout the game this tendency emerged to bring pressure to the side away from the run strength, and that Alabama dominated against these looks. Okay, so now that we've set the stage a little bit, instead of just dumping on Georgia for getting into the wrong pressures, let's start by talking about some of the benefits that they got or that they could have potentially gotten out of this pressure strategy. To start, let's look at a play where they're not blitzing. In this game, Alabama loved to run zone plays to the run strength, and so here we see that they've got an eye backfield, and then they've got a tight end lined up on the wing to the left. This means that the left side of the formation is going to be the run strength, and so that's the side that they're attacking on this play. Now, for the purposes of this video, we're going to be most interested in what's going on to the side away from the run strength, and so for now, let's look at how the Crimson Tide are blocking these 2 backside linemen. The defensive end here is going to be pretty simple. After the snap, the Tide are going to bring their wing tight end across the formation, and he's going to kick that guy out and seal him off from the play. Now, when they're able to take out that defender with their tight end, it means that the right guard and right tackle won't have to worry about him. And so on this play, they're going to be free to double team the next defensive lineman to the inside, combo blocking from him up to the second level. After the snap, the right guard makes first contact with him, and then as he does so, we see the right tackle working to take that block over. As we run this forward just a bit more, we see that the right tackle is able to cross that defender's face, putting his body in between him and the run to the left. When the right tackle is able to overtake that defensive lineman, it then allows the right guard to leave that block and release up to the second level. When he does this, he's able to get in the way of this linebacker right here, forcing him to work horizontally instead of attacking more directly downhill, where he'd be able to hold this run to a shorter gain. On this play, Alabama again has a wing tight end down here at the bottom of the screen. That makes this the run strength, and as we just saw, Alabama loved running zone plays to the run strength. The details of this play are slightly different from the last one, but everything's going to work out pretty much the same for the offensive line. After the snap, the wing tight end's going to cross the formation. On the last play, we saw that guy was blocking the backside defensive end. On this play, they're going to do something different. They're going to release that tight end into the flat and then RPO off the defensive end, but either way, the offensive line doesn't have to block that guy. So who do they block? Well, as we saw in the last play, when they don't have to worry about that defensive end, it frees them up to double team the next defensive lineman inside of him, and after the snap, we see them doing just that. The problem here is that on this play, Georgia's running one of those blitzes away from the run strength, and so after the snap, we can see that this linebacker is already pressing the line of scrimmage outside of that double team. As we've seen, the quarterback's reading the defensive end, and on this play, his read's going to tell him to pull the ball and try to work the RPO, but when he does so, that linebacker's screaming unblocked into the backfield to disrupt the play. These blitzes could also be effective against Alabama's passing game. Here, we're again seeing that look with two tight ends lined up to the left, and the tight are running a play-action fake to that side. After the snap, we see that this gives them a ton of pass protection here, with two tight ends, the running back coming off the play fake, and a left tackle who doesn't even have anybody to block. On the backside, though, things are a lot more favorable for the pass rush. After the snap, they're going to pop this linebacker outside, and then they're going to stab this defensive end down inside, and those two defenders are going to draw the blocks of the right tackle and right guard. This then opens up a clear lane for this weak side linebacker who's coming on the blitz away from the run strength. He's able to get through before the right guard can redirect back out to him, and the quarterback's forced to scramble out of the pocket. Alright, so now that we've been fair to Georgia and explained the logic behind these pressures, we can finally talk about how Alabama absolutely shredded them in multiple phases of the passing game. Put simply, when Georgia blitzed from the weak side like this, it created a coverage void, and Alabama then did a great job of finding multiple ways to get receivers into that hole. On this play, for example, we see that the run strength is set to the offense's right, and that'll be true according to both of our rules for determining it. To that side, Alabama starts the play with a tight end as an extra blocker on the wing, and that's also the side away from the running back's alignment. In this game, that meant that the blitz was usually going to come from the opposite side, and on this specific play, Georgia's going to blitz their nickel back off the edge. By itself, this blitz doesn't create any problems for the Bulldogs. If we look at their alignment before the blitz, we see that they're playing 3-on-2 to this side of the formation with a nickelback, cornerback, and safety lined up over two wide receivers. When they blitz one of those defenders, they still have two defensive backs left to cover the two receivers, and so from a numbers standpoint, they're doing okay. The problem here is that Alabama's using tight end motion to add a third receiver to this side. Just before the snap, the tight end motions across the formation, and this gives Alabama 3 receivers to the side of the blitz. As we've seen, though, when the blitz comes, Georgia only has 2 defensive backs left to defend those 3 threats, and at this point, the Tide can basically do whatever they want. On this play, they happen to be running an RPO, so they're running a strong side zone play to the right, and then they're packaging it with a quick screen to the outside receiver to the left. To get that screen blocked, the tight end is going to fire out to block the cornerback. The slot receiver is then going to see the blitz, and so he's going to release up to block the safety, and the Bulldogs won't have anybody left to tackle the screen. The quarterback reads this, throws it out to him, and he's able to get 8 yards downfield before anyone even touches him. A lot of Alabama's success then ultimately came from finding different ways to get into that weak side blitz void. For example, this plays a 2nd and 8. The Tide have a tight end up here at the top of the screen, and so we know that that's going to be the run strength, and the blitz is going to come from the opposite side, this time from this linebacker down here at the bottom of the screen. As we can see here, though, when that guy blitzes, it creates a natural coverage void in between the linebacker that's lined up next to him toward the top of the screen, and the safety that's rolled down in coverage to the opposite side. On this play, Alabama's going to target that void with a crossing route by that tight end. After the snap, we're going to see him work underneath the strong side linebacker and into that void, where Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young is going to hit him with a nice, confident throw into a window that's actually closing up pretty quickly. This play is going to be a 67-yard touchdown for Alabama, and on it, we're going to see Georgia apparently reacting to the run strength rules that I've been proposing in real time. When the Tide first come up to the line, we see that they don't have any extra blockers in the box, and so the first rule for determining run strength isn't going to work. The second rule then is to blitz the side of the back's alignment, and so here, before the snap, we see the linebacker to that side start creeping up to the line of scrimmage. Just before the snap, though, the quarterback's going to flip the back's alignment, and when he does this, that creeping linebacker is going to make a gesture to his partner, apparently switching up who's blitzing in order to match the running back's new alignment. After the snap, that guy does indeed blitz to the back, who's staying in for protection on this play. Now on the last play, we saw that when that linebacker blitzed, Bama was able to bring a crossing route into that void for a nice completion. Well, on this play, the Dogs don't want to let that happen, and so they are going to poach with this weak side safety, bringing him down into the low hole to poach any crossing routes working from the opposite side. On this play, Alabama's running a shallow cross with the outside receiver to the top of the screen, and so when that poach safety sees that crossing route coming toward him, he works down toward the line of scrimmage to attack it, taking away that hole that gets created by the blitzing linebacker. Again, given what we've seen in this video, we can understand the logic here, but as happened so often throughout this game, Alabama's just gonna have a better call in place to beat it. Here's the basic problem. When that safety comes downhill to fill the hole in the intermediate middle, he is opening up the deep middle of the field behind him, and on this play, the Tide have a great concept in place to attack it. On this play, Bama's in a bunch up here at the top of the screen, and Georgia's playing 3 over 3 to defend it, so they've got their nickelback, cornerback, and safety, essentially forming a zone triangle so that they can bracket those 3 bunch receivers by putting a defender inside, outside, and over the top of them. When the defense tries to surround your receivers with zone defenders like this, one way to attack them is to overload any one of those defenders with multiple routes. For example, as we've seen in this coverage, the nickelback is the inside defender in the triangle, and so here Bama's going to attack him by threatening him with 2 inside routes at different depths. For the deep route, the point man in the bunch is going to run a 7-step slant behind him. The inside receiver is then going to threaten him underneath, first breaking to the outside before banging it back inside and underneath that slant. The goal here is to make that nickelback wrong no matter what he does. If he stays deep to cut the slant, as it looks like he might do here, then he'll have to give up the underneath route at the sticks for a first down. On this play, though, he's going to see that receiver attacking the sticks underneath him, and so he's going to drive downhill on that route. As we now know, though, when he does this, it just gives the slant behind him free access to the middle of the field with no deep safety to the inside to take him away. Young hits that receiver in stride, and he outraces everybody else down the sidelines for a long touchdown. Of course, all the scheme in the world doesn't help you if your quarterback isn't coached up and confident in how to take advantage of it, and in Alabama's case, there was a really nice synergy between offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien's play calling from the sidelines and Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young's processing and execution on the field. So to get into that, let's look at this play. Here, Alabama's running the exact same concept. So again, the outside wide receiver in the bunch is running a shallow cross. The point man is running that 7-step slant. And the inside receiver is breaking underneath that slant with that same out and back route. Well, the passing concept may be the same here. Georgia's running something different on defense, and it's going to be up to Young to identify that difference and to change the way that he reads this play to account for it. This time, the Dogs are bringing a cross blitz from these 2 linebackers. That's going to empty out the middle of the field, and so to make sure that all of Alabama's receivers get covered without that middle help, they're going to play man coverage on the outside behind this pressure. So instead of having that zone triangle that we saw last time with 1 defender inside, 1 defender outside, and 1 defender over the top, they've got 3 man defenders lined up over the bunch receivers. This means that unlike on the last play, Alabama won't be able to outnumber any of those guys 2-on-1. Young won't be able to isolate his own defender and throw to wherever he isn't, and so in this case, he has to recognize the man coverage, and then he has to read each defender's leverage to find his best one-on-one matchup. On this play, he's going to end up throwing the slant again, but the thought process that gets him there will be totally different. So why does he throw it this time? It all comes down to leverage. It looks like Georgia has some switch rules in place to avoid getting picked on this play, but ultimately this rolled down safety is going to be responsible for the slant. After the snap, it's up to Young first to sort out who's covering whom, and then to find the defender who's in the worst position to cover his guy one-on-one. In this case, he sees that the guy who's covering the slant is lined up outside of his receiver. Here we can see that his left foot is basically on the hash, while the receiver that he's covering is a yard or so inside of it. After the snap, that defender's going to maintain that outside relationship. If we pause the play right here, we see that he's still outside of his man. When Young sees this, he knows that his receiver has an advantage because his slant is going to break inside and away from that defender. As we saw in the last play, Young's going to hit that receiver in stride, and all that the defenders around him will be able to do is rally to prevent the play from becoming any bigger than it already is. These last 2 plays then give a great summary of what went wrong for Georgia in this game. Alabama offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien was able to drop some plays that both targeted Georgia's weakness in blitz coverage while also giving Young answers against a variety of coverages. From there, Young did a fantastic job of figuring out what he was seeing from the defense and then figuring out what kind of read he had to activate based on what he was seeing, and he often had to do this with Georgia's blitz pressure in his face. When you're a defense that likes to pressure and you're facing this combination of scheme and execution, it's easy to get burned, and that's just what Alabama was able to do to them in this game. Alright, that's it for this video. Keep checking back on the channel for more breakdowns throughout the playoffs, and I'll see you here next time.